Joe Gibbs has had the responsibility to build many teams, football teams, race car teams. One of the things he said many times is you must invest in people. We want to highlight a ministry, a chaplain ministry at Joe Gibbs Racing that does exactly that.
I had been doing a Bible study over at Joe Gibbs Racing while I was with MRO, and Don Meredith, who's the executive vice president here, had said, hey, why don't you come over and just kind of start doing more ministry with our guys? At that point, Joe Gibbs Racing was about 20 or 25 guys, and they were in a small facility, and so he said, hey, we'll give you an office, and we want you to spend one day a week just ministering to our guys. And so it was a great partnership for me because it gave me an opportunity to do some real frontline ministry immediately, be supported to do that ministry, and be involved with a first-class organization and kind of a new growing organization in terms of sports chaplaincy work. I'm a very activity-oriented person, and I think one of the things I've learned is don't focus on the activity, focus on, number one, on Christ, number two, on loving people, and on number three, communicating God's word to people. If I do that, I mean, God just works. I mean, there are wonderful things that God accomplishes.
My spiritual background before JGR really didn't exist. Kind of wasn't raised to go to church. We did kind of when I was young, just because of my grandparents, but other than that, nothing. When I got interviewed for the position to work here, I was told about there being a Bible study on Wednesdays here in the Cup Shop, and it was kind of interesting. I didn't really know how to take it. And so the first week I kind of checked it out. You know, we got free lunch and stuff, and then after that it kind of just was more or less, oh, I'll just go get lunch. You know, I'm a broke kid anyways, so we'll go do that. And afterwards it really started to grow on me. And having all the different people come in and just to talk about it and to grow, it's almost undescribable, kind of the feeling, you know, that I started to go towards it. And then we started a small group series with Christianity Explored, and that was kind of, I think, the sole grasp right there that kind of, maybe for lack of better terms, a slap in the face saying, hey, this is it. And that's, you know, I think November of last year, I went ahead and committed my life to Christ, and here we are. It's very intimidating, you know, being a new Christian, and especially never really looking at one other than the scriptures we got during this, you know, our studies. It was very intimidating, but I think you know, I got the first one and read through the book of Mark, and then I felt comfortable. I went out and bought another one that was more of a study Bible, and it, you know, it's kind of goes through it with you, and then now I've got a smartphone now, so I get to use that and read the Bible, you know. So I've actually got this trip coming up, so I'm going to do some reading on this trip.
When I moved here, one of my thoughts was, I'm going to go find a church and I'm going to go back to church, which was just an out of the blue thought because that was the last thing in my mind. I hadn't been to church in years. I really didn't care for church. He's used Joe Gibbs Racing 100%. I honestly don't know if I would be where I am now had I not come here and been introduced to other believers. And for me, it was seeing. It was nothing in the words. It was watching my coworkers who were believers, the way they acted, the way they spoke. You could just see a kindness and a peace about them. And it was, to me, it all reflected back to their belief in God and their love for Him.
And Bob come by, introduced himself, and was just being friendly, just being a friend, and was talking, and eventually asked some spiritual questions. And those spiritual questions, I had some pretty good answers to because I had 12 years of good Christian education, so I could answer those questions. But there was one question that he asked that I couldn't answer, and that was if I were to die, that right then, would I go to heaven or hell? And I was trying to weigh out whether I had done more good or bad. And that's how I got to know Bob. Bob started leading me to Christ. And through that interview process that he gave me in a casual conversation at the racetrack, I come to know the Lord within just a couple of weeks of having that conversation. Bob offered friendship right off the bat. And that's, you know, that's comforting. And through friendship come evangelism. And so he evangelized. And after the evangelism and the acceptance started the discipleship and the mentoring. And then after the mentoring becomes the accountability. So those 5 things are basically the 5 things that I think that the chaplaincy, it kind of encompasses all those things to somebody at some different point in their relationship, you know, where they are spiritually. They fall in one of those 5 categories.
Without a question, I would say probably one of the 2 or 3 most strategic things we've done in the leadership here at Joe Gibbs Racing was to hire Bob to develop a chaplaincy program, because it's had a tremendous ministry to the 400 or so employees we have right now. If they have any openness to God, the chaplaincy program is the best way to connect with them where they are. Jimmy Makar, who is the head of all racing here now, and he was really the first crew chief we ordered 20 years ago. And his nickname was Mad Dog. He was such a tough guy to deal with. In fact, he would occasionally speak to me when I would come into town back then, and probably as far from Christianity as a man could get. And I would say that the chaplaincy program has been a real key part in his life changing. And today he's a godly man. He travels in various parts of the world to share his faith. His family have all been revolutionized through that, and that's the best example within our organization. And so the chaplaincy program is, I think, has affected him greatly.
Joe Gibbs said to build a team, you must invest in people. Jesus commissioned us to make disciples. And that's an all-encompassing responsibility. It's not just going and laying a gospel bomb and telling people the story of Jesus. It's really investing in their lives. When you measure success, it shouldn't be measured by how many races you win, but I would venture to say the ministry that's gone on at Joe Gibbs Racing, the success will be measured by the lives changed. And not just with a decision, but becoming mature believers who are then reaching out to others. Our goal at the Sports Chaplains Network is to fan the flame, to encourage sports chaplains, to encourage sports teams that need chaplains, or even if they might not know they need a chaplain, that they might come to the understanding that this is really a powerful opportunity. And we're excited about seeing the influence of this sort of ministry multiplying.